What is up, my friends? It is Sunday night, it is the late night agenda, and it is a pleasure to be here with you all. I'm not going to lie, yesterday was tough going, wasn't it? I mean, that result kind of just came out of nowhere, if I'm being honest with you. So, I spent the last 24 hours, probably like your good selves, trying to figure out what on earth went wrong, how we can stop it from happening again, and what maybe we can expect coming up against AC Milan on Tuesday when the Reds travel over to Italy. So, I want to remind you all that this game against AC Milan, it really does matter. Every game in the Champions League this season matters. Before, you used to be able to go over to maybe Italy, Spain, pick up a point away from home. That wasn't so bad. But with this new Champions League format, you want to try and finish in those top 8 league positions. So every game really does count. And for that reason, I'm expecting us to go over there and really try and look for that victory. Arne Slot is going to know he's going to have to make some changes to his starting 11 ahead of the game. We're going to try figure out tonight between us all what those changes might be. I've just finished recording my preview for the game, and that video is going to come out tomorrow morning, so please do check that one out if you get a chance. Until then, look, whatever else you guys want to talk about, you know, this is your show, so have at it in the comment section, and we'll figure out a way to get to it. It's difficult though right now, isn't it? I mean, we've looked around, we've seen Arsenal win the North London Derby today. You see Manchester United go and pick up a victory this weekend. At least we can all look at Everton and think, you know, it could be worse. We could be Evertonians, because it must be very, very difficult for the Blue Noses at the minute. Go 2-0 up against Villa and again capitulate to lose 3-2. It's a sad state of affairs for them. So yeah, that I want to talk about the refereeing incidents today as well. We've seen a similar situation with, I think it was Yuri and Timber, to Curtis Jones' red card that he got, funnily enough, in the same stadium last year. Only this time, we didn't see a consistency of refereeing performance. Now look, I'm not trying to say send the lad off and I don't want Arsenal to win or anything. I'm just trying to make a valid point that we had a similar situation last season when it was Jones, red card. This season, nothing. Make that one make some sense, my friends. Also, keep in mind the Milan game is on Amazon Prime, said Mark. Yes, it is. If you're in the UK, you're going to have an Amazon Prime subscription to watch that one for myself. I'm lucky enough that it's on Premier Sport over here in Ireland, so I should be able to watch it. Anthony said, banging tune, evening Craig and everyone, hope all is well. Thank you, bro. Yeah, it's an interesting tune. I find it quite relaxing, in all honesty. Look, can be a bit cheesy, of course it can, but I think it's a good way to just start off the stream, little bit of fun, you know, and I think it works for our channel because we don't take ourselves too seriously. We need to change him. Who's him? Derek, who's him? If we're talking about Arne Slot, surely not, bro. Surely we're not there already. I don't know who you're talking about changing though, but feel free to let me know in the comments. FSG out said, going over to the Bologna game. So when I was looking at going to a game this season, it was between Bologna and Lille. They were the two games that I was looking at the tickets for, and we decided to wait till after Christmas, so we're going for the Lille game. But enjoy the Bologna one, bro. If you're heading over to it, I'm sure it's going to be a fun night. Another issue that I'd like to talk about tonight, of course, is the atmosphere inside Anfield. It's been a major talking point again over the last 24 hours. I recorded a podcast earlier on today with Jack Gill, which will also be coming out tomorrow, and that was one of the topics that we covered in the podcast. I want to also just draw your attention to a piece in the Echo about the atmosphere, written by a season ticket holder of 25 years, and honestly it was a very good, well-balanced article that I'd certainly say made some good points in it, so if you're interested in that as well, do check that one out. But for me, I don't think there's any one solution to the Anfield atmosphere. Sometimes it's down to the opposition, it not being a massive game perhaps. Other times it's down to the people inside the stadium. Sometimes the game can be a little bit flat. But all in all, I think if we're going to have these honest conversations around the atmosphere, it needs to be done without any vilification of non-locals, locals, or anybody else. We need to just try to find constructive, positive solutions to these things, because nobody doesn't want the stadium bouncing. Nobody doesn't want everybody being behind Arne Slot and the boys. So it's about trying to figure out ways to just, I guess, make these changes. And of course, the club are going to have to be involved in this as well, and they're going to have to start having dialogue with fans about ways to maybe improve the atmosphere inside Anfield. It's always easy for the crowds to be up for a big European night. When you go, you greet the coaches, stuff like that, and everybody goes into the stadium full of expectation and bouncing. But if it's a 3 p.m. Saturday against the Forest or a 12:30 against somebody else, you're not going to get those same atmospheres. So Sometimes you got to get creative, right, and try to generate those atmospheres. And maybe it's a little bit of post-match or pre-match content, bit of music or whatever. Maybe it's some areas inside the stadium that are unreserved, so people can maybe go and watch the games together with their mates, because it's difficult to get tickets beside each other. So yeah, look, we're going to try and strike the balance with that conversation tonight as well. What have we got? Did you see Andre Trinidad's debut today? Look calm and tidy in midfield. I didn't. I only caught the last 20 minutes or so of the Newcastle game. Great goal by Harvey Barnes, though. I want to give him credit on that one. What a strike that was. But no, I didn't really see it, to be honest, mate. Stevie boy, how are we? So, first super chat of the night, and thank you for this one, mate. And look, people often say to me, Craig, stop talking about the owners. But you'll see tonight, it's not me that brought it up. So I have to address the comments, so I'm going to have to talk about it. But remember, I'm not bringing it up. So it's not me coming on to rant about FSG again, because I know people get a bit wound up by me at that one. So Stevie Boy said, PR machine is out, and lads, get ready for a big summer transfer window incoming. I mean, I don't, at this point, think anybody believes that there's going to be all of a sudden a big change of heart and a huge transfer window coming in January or in the summer, mate. I think at this point, right now, the main focus for all of us has to be the contract extensions, or, what happens with them. There's various thought processes about what's the best thing to do here for Virgil, for Mohamed, and of course for Trent. I just want there to be clarity on the subject. I think that uncertainty is nobody's friend in these scenarios. So for me, I just want to see the lads get their futures resolved, so we all know what we're up against, so we know what to expect. Because speaking with Jack earlier on today, let's say as an example, even if we lost one or two of those three players, add to the centre-back or two that we already need to bring in, add that to the midfielder that we need to bring in, and you're looking at a pretty big window again. And based off what we've seen, I don't think many of us have too much faith that the club are capable of fielding or filling these big voids in our squad. We're now into our third year looking for this number 6. So, yeah, it is what it is in that regard. But they can sort out the contract renewals, which is something that I think most of us would agree needs to be done as quickly as possible. Padraig Quinn said, was that it? Thought the atmosphere was good. You'll Never Walk Alone was as loud as ever, and LA was good as well. I have to say, Padraig, and I wasn't at the game, bro, so I'm just going off what other people have said. I've spoken to a couple of people who were at the game, and most of them came down on the side of the atmosphere being awful. Again, you were there, and I'm not trying to say that your lived experience isn't true. I'm just saying that the reports from elsewhere were that there was very, very prolonged periods of silence and dullness inside the stadium. But it's a two-way street, right? The fans have to have something to get behind as well, and there wasn't much. It wasn't easy going there watching us struggle to break down that low block that Nuno Espirito Santo side came with, and that's been an Achilles heel of ours under now two different types of manager, or two different managers. We've got to figure that out as well. Ibi X Edits 3 said, hello Craig, still feel very upset after the misery show. Yeah, it's understandable. What got me about that yesterday was just, it really took me by surprise. Last year maybe we didn't know what to expect. We were a little bit up, we were a little bit down, but so far this season, we've been almost faultless. And I was just thinking about this. We've played 4 games this season, right? We've conceded 1 goal. And of course, it's the goal in the game that we lose and don't manage to score in. So from that regard, it's frustrating as well, right? Because we kept 3 perfect clean sheets up to that point. And even if we had have conceded 1 in only those other games, we probably would have won it anyway because we were scoring. So yesterday, you couple with the goal that we conceded, of course, and the attackers drawing a blank at the other end, and it just added for a very frustrating afternoon. AC Milan won yesterday 4-0. They did, but they won 4-0 against a very poor side who I think are newly promoted, and they have not had a good start to the season, AC Milan, so I'm certainly not expecting us to go over there with any fear. We should be looking to beat AC Milan, even at the San Siro, but we need to be a lot better than we were yesterday. Our players have a bit of a record coming back flat after the international break. It's true, yeah. Well, at least we perceive it to be true, right? We talked about this quite a bit. And do you know what? I'll be honest with you, Camel. I thought when we went into halftime yesterday, maybe arrogantly from my side, I thought we'd figure it out like we did against Brentford, like we did against Ipswich, and I thought we'd come out second half and be a lot better. And if anything, we probably regressed even more in the second half. If you're looking at the substitutions both managers made in the game, well, you'd have to say Nuno's substitutions were far more impactful to the game than the ones from Arne Slot. I mean, we made the full complement of 5 changes, and quite frankly, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here to say that not one of those changes made any difference to the way that we played. If anything, we went backwards instead of progressing. We had to lose at some point. At least it's out of the way now, Craig. Yeah, look, there is that as well, mate. And I'm not here to try and be all doom and gloom. Far from it. I just want us to react and come back and try and beat AC Milan on Tuesday night. Look, we've got another winnable game then at the weekend at home against Bournemouth. Bournemouth are usually a team who come and play. They don't really sit back and they don't look to try and be compact. At least over recent history they haven't. So I'm expecting that to be a game that we should be quite comfortable getting the better of them as well. But again, it's easy to sit here and talk about it, but the lads have to go out there and make the improvements and improve on that performance yesterday, because it was just unacceptable. Change because we lost the game against the run of play. Stop it, Craig. What the fuck are you talking about, dickhead? Honestly, what are you talking about? Have I in any way been negative, Kofi, to anybody here? Are you happy we lost the game of football yesterday? Very weird, mate. I expect a bit more respect, to be honest with you, than that nonsense that you've just come in there with. Stop what? We lost the game of football. Whether it was against the run of play or not doesn't matter. We were terrible. You know it, I know it, Slot knows it, the players know it. So your comment, mate, is absolute nonsense, and you can do one as far as I'm concerned. I come in and I show everybody respect, and I expect that respect back. Don't give it off you pop. I'm not getting into arguments with people anymore, because I deserve better than that. Our community deserves better than that. And I'm not going to get wound up by it, because I'm going to move on to the next comment from somebody who actually wants to come in and have a proper conversation. The title of your vid, it means. And again, does the title of the video say anything other than Slot faces harsh reality? And the harsh reality is, you've got to take every game seriously in the Premier League. That's simple. I don't think that's too difficult to comprehend. You might be able to get away with picking the same team 4 or 5 games in a row over in Feyenoord, but over here in the Premier League, you've got to come in every week and you've got to be at it. And we probably would have known that we weren't going to get a great performance from Alexis McAllister yesterday, because history tells us that, one, he's usually quite fatigued at this point of the season after international breaks. He had the abductor strain, so some changes probably were needed. He did make those changes, and the changes that he did make during the game, let's be honest, the last one in particular, the double change that he made, that was more out of desperation than anything else. Going to a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3 was nothing but desperation. There was no rhyme or reason to it other than let's try and get bodies forward, because we did nothing. Forest didn't have much to do in that second half. The majority of our decent chances we created were in the first half. Lucho hitting the post, unlucky with that. Diogo Jota probably should have done better as well. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying, how people interpret a title and run with it, I can't control. I can only talk the words that I do when I come on. If you want to interpret a title as somebody having a bash at Slot, far be it. But let me say this. At any point since Slot has come to Liverpool Football Club, have I been anything other than supportive of the manager? I've been saying all summer I don't want them to be used as a scapegoat. So my body of work in this area is pretty well established. So if somebody misinterprets it, it ain't my problem, and I'm not going to put up with their nonsense. A random question, but if you could have any ex-Liverpool player to be in the prime of this team, who would it be? I think I've been asked this question recently enough. It's an interesting one. Nazar, I would probably say Alonso. Alonso would probably be the one, because I think it's what we need at the team. Alonso, last year I would have probably gone for somebody like a Javier Mascherano, somebody like a bit of a destroyer in midfield, but with the way Arne likes to play, I think... I think I'd go with that. him. Way too early to jump on players. And again, who's jumping on players? You know, I've got no problem being held accountable for stuff I say, but I'm not jumping on any players. I'm just coming in here talking about what we can do against Milan, putting right what we did wrong yesterday. And if you can't come in and have an open conversation after a poor performance, what's the point? You know, I'm not going to come on every week and say how great everything is. You all watched that game yesterday. It was not great. Nobody should be above criticism. They need to be better. The attitude on the pitch from some players yesterday was not great visually to look at. Trent, I thought, was shocking. I didn't like his body language at all there yesterday, if I'm being honest. I expect better from somebody who's a vice captain of the football club. So that was something I didn't really enjoy. Our bluntness in attack, it's very unlike us. Usually we're quite open, we're quite good at creating and scoring opportunities. But to concede one goal and lose the game, it does feel really harsh because, as I said, we hadn't conceded a goal up to that point. The one time we do concede is the time we draw a blank in front of goal, and it punishes us. And that's what the Premier League is. You know, you can't really have off days. Mark Fitchin, how are you, Mark? And thank you for your super chat, mate. What's the agenda with the proposed FSG and Saudi deal? Well, it's got nothing. If what? Excuse me. I'm going to try and get these words out, mate. If the deal you're talking about is the one I think, it's to do with golf. It's got nothing to do with the running of Liverpool Football Club. I believe if you're talking about a story that's in the Echo, I think it was something along the lines of FSG to make £750 million deal with Saudi Arabia, something along those lines. And I think it was to do with the merger of Live Golf and the US PGA Tour. I think it's something around that. I don't know of anything else from Saudi and Liverpool perspective, mate, so I assume that that's what you're talking about, Mark. But if I'm wrong, let me know and we'll happily have a conversation about it. Sean's Solutions, apologies, Sean, said, gutted about the result, good holiday. Yeah, it was lovely, thank you, mate. It was lovely to spend some time with the young lad, introduce him to Happy Gilmore, which was a nice watch when we were away. And yeah, I was gone into that international break, Sean, absolutely full of beans, mate, after a great result at Old Trafford before we headed off. And yeah, I said yesterday's result really just caught a lot of us by surprise because we didn't expect it. But full credit to Nuno and his side. I mean, they're no mugs. They've played 4 games this season, 2 wins, 2 draws, sitting there on 8 points as well. So full credit to them for the way that they came and played yesterday. Hi Craig, if Szoboszlai doesn't kick on this season, is his future in doubt in your opinion? It's a really good question, Carl. He has age on his side. But I totally get where you're coming from. Like, I expect more of Dominik Szoboszlai. And there's certain players in the squad that I probably would hold to a higher standard than others because I know, or we know, what they're capable of. And Dominik Szoboszlai has every tool in his locker to be a massive success. He's got the range of passing, he's got the physicality, he's got the athleticism, he's got the football and brain. But he does need to put it together on a more consistent level. So, yeah, maybe, mate, maybe it's certainly... It's too early to write him off in a season or not, but I think it's a fair point to say that he needs to up his game this season. We've seen flashes of it, but if we can see it consistently, then it could be a big factor with us going from, Champions League position challengers to maybe, looking to challenge for the Premier League. So, good point, and certainly something that he does need to brush up on. Yeah, so I appreciate you though, mate. Thank you. Harry, how are you, bro? You're always so kind with the super chats and that, Harry. Appreciate you. Said, only one game, we need to improve, but I see this season as a fun ride and see how Slot will approach each game. I'm not worried about Slot Trophy. I mean, again, it's a good point. Harry and myself and Jack were kind of asking each other this question earlier on, like what is an acceptable season this season? And the way I usually try to take it with a new manager is, first season, I don't really have too many expectations, I do want to see us qualify for the Champions League again. But like under Jurgen Klopp's time, I'm looking to see progression, month on month, season on season, and just improvements. And if Arne Slot can continue to do that, added in with a couple of additional signings over the next few windows, yeah, there's no reason to believe that we can't get back to where we want to be. But this season, Champions League qualification again for next year, I think we should realistically be looking to finish no lower than third in the league, in all honesty. And then if you get out of the Champions League groups, or league stage, and into the knockout rounds, see where you go. So yeah, I think it's a fair point, mate. I'm not looking for a minimum of a trophy in his first year, just looking to see that we're headed in the right direction. Adam Brown said, I'm with you in giving Darwin this season to prove himself. It's really disgusting to see some of the abuse he's getting online. Who would you see being his replacement if the worst came to the worst? Do you know, I'm going to be honest with you on the answer, Adam, and say I don't really know who the replacement could be, because I'm still trying to get up to speed with what an Arne Slot striker would be, what he would want from a striker. I'm looking at Jayden Danns and thinking a year or two down the line, maybe Jayden Danns could be there or thereabouts. But this season, it is on Darwin. I understand that it's been an up and down time for him. And yes, some fans have gotten on his back, and I've been occasionally on his back as well. But we know what he's capable of, and everybody can't do it for him. He's got to figure it out. He's got to show the same desire, the same fight, the same passion that got him to Liverpool Football Club while he's here. And if he starts to do that, and he starts to stick the ball in the back of the net, Liverpool fans will forgive a lot. But right now, he just looks so far off the pace, so far off understanding what the manager wants from him, that I think it is fair to say anyone who has concerns, they're well-founded concerns, but I definitely wouldn't be writing him off yet. I mean, I'm giving him this season personally. But right now, he isn't the starting number 9, and it's up to him to force his way into the manager's thinking and prove that he deserves to be there. Alex said, Man City hearing starts tomorrow. Thoughts? I don't really have too many, mate, because you're still looking at minimum of a couple of months for this hearing to play out, and then somewhere between January and March before the verdict comes out. So I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself. And also, whatever happens, whether Manchester City win the appeal and the charges have disappeared, or whether the Premier League's decision stands, it's most likely going to be appealed by one of the two sides, which will mean it's going to drag on even further. Now, a couple of things I'd like to clarify around the Manchester City situation is, unlike when UEFA tried to hold them to account, Manchester City or the Premier League cannot take this to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. They can't do that. In the Premier League rules, it states that this cannot be appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, as they're not recognised in the Premier League's laws. So it can be appealed, though, and it will be appealed to the same panel, only it will be a different 3 judges, I believe, or a list of 3 judging people, legal minds, who would, again, look at the situation. So whatever happens with it, I don't expect this to be finished until probably closer to the end of this season, before we get the appeals and all out of the way. And then who knows what's going to happen. We all know what we want. We've seen what's happened with City over the years. We all know that they've been charged. But hopefully they can make these charges stick, because many of us really do want to just see what we believe to be justice served here. But, they do have the right to go through the legal process, and let's wait and see how it works out. My thoughts on them. I mean, it's I've made them pretty clear over the years. Random question. No, but if you had to pick a player to stay from the 20... I'm not going back into the hypotheticals about a year or two ago, mate. It's not relevant. Let's talk about what we have now and what we might need to do. I mean, these hypothetical questions are a bit of fun and all, but I'm more focused on what we need to put right against AC Milan, to be honest with you, bro. Hope he proves me wrong, but Darwin is nowhere near it for us, said Anthony. I was hoping we replaced him with a different type of forward, a bit of a beast like Ivan Toney. Yeah, look, again, I feel like this is a conversation where I don't think it's fair of me to tell anybody else how to feel. I can only ever give you my opinion on these things, and I don't want to write Darwin off yet. But I also don't want to just stick my fingers on my ears and say, la, 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 everything's great. Because it isn't. We know what he's capable of, and it is up to him to make it work. And we all hope it happens. We want Darwin to succeed. Nobody wants to see the lad come to Liverpool and fail. We want him to work out, but, he's got to do his part here as well. Nicholas said, Darwin's played 30 meaningful minutes this year. The obsession is ridiculous. Again, I could counter that argument by saying the reason he's played 30 minutes this year is because he's not shown the manager enough to get a start. You can't ignore that side of it either. And whilst there's definitely, Nicholas, some merit in what you've said, you can't ignore the reasons why he hasn't played as well, mate. It's because he hasn't been good enough. So, he's got to take account for that as well. Like, I don't know and you don't know what Arne Slot sees on the training ground. But for whatever reason, he hasn't got minutes really in these first 4 games. And again, it's up to Darwin to prove himself and put himself into the manager's thinking. You don't just not get minutes for no reason. The manager doesn't pick you because he doesn't fancy it, and that's basically usually off what he sees on the training ground. ES Sport 05, thank you for your super chat, mate. Said, never going to write Darwin off. He's getting 25 plus goals and assists, and he's getting grief. Yes, he's missing easy chances, but just imagine when it starts going. You see, I'm also of the mindset that we're going to get those numbers you spoke about, but he's not missing the easy chances this year, and that's more worrying for me because he's not, in the brief time he's had, he's not getting into those positions really to miss those chances, or he's not creating some of those chances which he was able to create for himself before. So I think if we're being, really honest about this, the truth probably lies somewhere between what Nicola said a moment ago and what other people are thinking. Everybody has to be better here. The players have to understand Darwin's movements a bit better. Darwin has to time his runs a little bit better, and certainly he has to be a little bit better in his finishing. But I'm not going to go in on you, mate, for not wanting to write the kid off. Why would I? We all want him to succeed. Fair point, but it's not like Jota is a bum and he had a full pre-season. Again, these type of conversations, I don't like it when people try to deflect from what we're talking about. Nobody's saying Jota is or isn't a bum, but if I'm a €100 million striker coming in my prime, really just ready to go and take on the world and become a superstar, I'm batting Jota away. I'm not worried about Diogo Jota. So Diogo Jota's got the start because, yes, he had a pre-season, but he also had an international tournament the same as Darwin did. So, both of them had a busy summer, but Diogo is obviously somebody who the manager just feels at this particular moment, Nicholas, that he can rely on a little bit more. I think both of them need to improve, to be honest with you. Jota certainly need to... Like, if Jota puts away that chance he had yesterday in the first half, that's probably a very different game. Adam Brown, let me grab your super chat, mate. And again, very much thank you. So look, before I get into this super chat, actually, top left corner, as you can see, we are only 20 subscribers away from 275,000. So if you haven't, please do hit that subscribe button and let's see if we can get ourselves over the line as soon as possible. Adam said, an option for me would be Duran from Villa. I was stunned when I saw he was only 20. Don't think he would be crazy money. I mean, he nearly moved this summer from Aston Villa, if my memory is correct. And I have no idea what type of money he'd go for if he was to move now. He started the season very well at Aston Villa. He's actually outshining Ollie Watkins at the minute. So yeah, I mean, certainly a player's name worth bringing into the conversations, but I don't think Villa are going to want to move him on if he continues going in the way he is. And of course, Villa in the Champions League themselves this season, once he starts playing in that competition, if he bags a goal or two, his price is only going to go in one direction, isn't it, Adam? And that's upwards. Danny, how are you, bro? Said, evening, Craig. The club really need to get contract renewal sorted ASAP. They will become a distraction we don't need. I've no notes to give you there, mate. Nothing to push back on. I agree with every single word you've written, and I've been saying as much for quite a long time. Whether the club feel that they have these things in hand or not, it does add anxiety into the fan base and into people who feel like we don't know what's going on now. And it certainly feeds into the narrative around the football club, whether it be from the outside or from the pundits or whatever. I mean, Paul Merson's already writing Liverpool off. Not that anybody should pay attention to whatever Paul Merson has to say, because he talks a lot of rubbish, let's be quite honest. But he's already writing us off. Neville was spouting a load of crap before the United game about United's midfield being better than Liverpool's midfield, and everyone just seems to want to see us fade away. It's up to us to make sure that we don't. It's up to Arne Slot to make sure that Liverpool are right there shoving those doubts down everybody's throats. We need reinforcements in January, said Kenny G. We needed reinforcements in the summer, Kenny, if we're being really honest. And of course, that then extends into January. But, you know, I got a lot of grief over the summer. And I get a lot of grief all the time when I have my say on the owner's cheapness. But, again, we're already at a point now where I feel my point is proven. You know, Elliott's out. Jones doesn't look good enough. He doesn't trust Wataru Endo. And we're already at a point where you kind of have to play the same midfield three. You have to play McAllister, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai because the rest aren't good enough. And I'm not saying Endo isn't good enough, but whether you believe me or not, look at the lack of opportunities he's getting from Arne Slot. He doesn't suit the system, the way Slot wants to play, and Slot was willing to sell him. This is why it was so galling to me that people were trying to say we didn't need these signings in the summer, or that, you know, I was overreacting. I don't think I was, because I know what's going to come. One injury there, and we're already up shit creek. Why would a player extend a contract with owners who lack ambition unless they're happy with fourth every year? Again, if they don't want to extend, we need to address that as well. All I want here, Caledonia mate, is clarity. If it is that the players want to leave, then we need to address that. And isn't it surely better for the club to know this so they can start their planning longer in advance? You know, so it works for everybody. It works for the fans, the players, and of course the club to get the clarity on this situation and get it sorted out. It was very concerning to me over the international break to read pieces from the likes of Caught Offside and a few others who think that Liverpool are planning to lose 2 or even all 3 of those. Like, let's imagine that for a second. Let's say we lose Trent and Virgil and Mo stays. That's still a huge loss to the football club and a big gap in that squad that we're going to have to fill, and fill probably by spending a load of dough that history has taught us these owners don't like spending. However, we sold lots of youth, loaned out players, brought in. FSG is happy to make money, and fans could be damned. That's exactly how I feel about them, mate. Look, I understand and completely agree with the Stefan Bajcetic loan. I feel like it was really important that he went and played minutes this season. And when Arne Slot spoke about that, I agreed with most of what he had to say, to be honest with you. The Bobby Clark one I find very strange. And for people who are talking about Tyler Morton as well, staying at the club, he's not getting opportunities, is he? You know? So the manager doesn't feel that he can trust Tyler Morton yet either. So what's the point of this? I mean, we're saying that there isn't places to fill on the bench. Well, I would argue, look at that bench yesterday and tell me, outside of maybe Gakpo, who's going to come on there and change the game? I think there's definitely improvements that can be made to our bench, because the drop-off from our preferred, let's say, 12, 13 players is quite immense, in my opinion, in a few positions. Fergal, again, who's pushing the panic button? I get very disillusioned, mate, when people come in and start kicking off about people pushing the panic button. I have not pushed any panic button. All I've said since the start of this stream is that we know we're better than we were yesterday. We need to figure it out, and we need to sort out the result. I haven't advocated for anyone to be sacked, kicked out of the club. All I've done is come into the chat with an open mind to have a conversation, and people are coming in and just throwing their toys out of the pram. I'm not asking for anyone to be booted out, mate. I'm not asking for anyone to push any panic buttons. I'm talking about the window, which wasn't good enough, which is going to lead into the season. And I'm talking about what we've seen against Nottingham Forest, which just wasn't good enough. No panic button being pushed, just an honest assessment of what we looked at. Lynn said, isn't it obvious that the squad depth is not good enough and no Champions League games played yet? How can Liverpool and Slot keep saying we're good enough when we're showing up the subs are not good enough? There's definitely ability to strengthen that squad, and I think most of us would agree with that. I don't think we need to push the panic button, but I certainly don't think we need to stick our fingers in our ears and pretend that everything is amazing as well. This was one blip in a season, but it's not going to be the last. There are going to be times where we suffer because of injuries, suspension, And we don't have that depth in a couple of key areas that I think will be able to keep us challenging. I hope I'm wrong, but that's my honest assessment of the window. Our starting 11 is as good as anybody's. And on our day, we can beat anybody. But I do feel that centre-back and midfield lack of signing will come back to haunt us. Attack-wise, I actually think we're pretty good. You know, if you look at what we have available to us now with Kiesa in, Salah, Gakpo, Diaz, Jota, Darwin, and of course Jadon Danns, you know, that's 7 attackers. So we've more than enough at that end of the pitch. It's just about making sure that they play to the best of their abilities. It's midfield that concerns me, and if we had an injury at centre-back, I think we could be in a bit of trouble as well. How can anyone be confident in the Milan game? Even Klopp struggled against Italian clubs. I just don't think they're very good, quite frankly, Stephen, to be honest with you. I just don't think this AC Milan team are anything to be overly concerned about. I would say if we play to the best of our abilities, we beat that Milan team. Milan fan base isn't quite happy at the minute. They're not happy with the manager that was brought in Fonseca. Last time I checked as well, there was still something like 17,000 tickets available for the game against Liverpool. I'm sure some of them have since been sold, but it's not all rosy in the AC Milan garden as well, and we should be looking to go over there and hopefully try to add to that anxiety and try to quieten down the San Siro by getting ourselves an early goal and hopefully having the stadium get a bit tetchy and everybody panicking. That's the dream scenario for us. Craig, they just won 4-0. Yeah, look who they beat 4-0 though. You know, it's not like they went out and beat Inter 4-0 or Juventus 4-0. They beat, I think, a newly promoted side who are most likely going to get straight back down to Serie B. And before that, they haven't had a good start to the campaign. And I'm only telling you what has been written about by Milan fans. They're not very happy with the group, with the manager, and with the direction the club is headed in. So they won 4-0 against nobody. It doesn't matter. And it's irrelevant to this game as well, because Liverpool are not the team that they beat 4-0. We were a hell of a lot better than the opposition they played against. Craig, we just got cooked by Nottingham Forest. Did we? Do you understand what the word cooked means, or are you just trying to sound cool? We lost to Nottingham Forest by a good counter-attack goal and a solid defensive performance. In no way were we outplayed. In no way did they cook us. You just don't seem to understand what you're actually talking about. And that, my friend, is concerning, because we lost a game of football. We weren't cooked. Cooked is going and getting battered from one end of the pitch to the next, being dominated, having chance after chance against you. That wasn't the game I watched yesterday. I don't know about you. We lost a game of football, but we definitely weren't battered, cooked, destroyed, or embarrassed. I just can't wrap my head around how on earth we've come into this season with the bench we have. Curtis Jones, Darwin Nunez on the bench. I'm embarrassed we aren't good enough. It isn't good enough. I'm not going to push back on that because I said the same all summer. But this is what we have. There's no point in... We're going to torture ourselves if we just keep looking at what we didn't do. Right now, we are where we are. You know, we have the players that we have, and it's up to Arne Slot and the coaches and the players to find solutions. And we know what they're capable of. You know, we've seen what we did to Manchester United at Old Trafford. That was quite a good performance. So it's about making sure that yesterday doesn't happen again. Because let's be honest, most of us didn't recognise that version of Liverpool. That came as a surprise to me yesterday. And maybe I'm a bit deluded there, because I thought we were great going into the international break. And to see us come back and be as poor as we were, especially at home against Forest, it was a shock. Forest beat us, Craig. Forest, AC Milan will beat us as well. Well, then just do me a favour and don't watch. You know, if that's what you think we're going to go and watch and get beaten by AC Milan, then don't watch. Don't torture yourself. Don't put yourself through it. I'm not at the mindset that I think we're going to go over and get beaten by AC Milan. So, you know, maybe I'm delusional. I don't know. But I don't understand being that negative. You know, we lost a game of football that we shouldn't have lost. Absolutely. No argument there whatsoever, bro. We're better than Forest. But yesterday, we lost. Doesn't mean we're going to lose the next game and the next game and the next game. You know, we ask the players to be resilient. We ask the players to bounce back. We've got to do it as well as fans. We can't be overly confident when we win, and we can't be overly defeatist when we lose. Got about finding solutions, and we got to find those solutions. So, up to you how you look at the future of the season. But for me, I'm looking at yesterday as a blip, and I'm expecting a response from the players on Tuesday. If we don't get that response from the players on Tuesday, as I said yesterday during the watch-along, then yeah, it's worrying. Because then it becomes a mini crisis. But I'm definitely not going into this game thinking we're going to be beaten by Milan, we might as well not show up. Owen said, I understand this is a difficult discussion for some like Darwin, but it needs to be discussed more. He's not going to come good. So, again, maybe he will and maybe he won't, Owen. I don't know. But what I do know, my friend, is he's what we have right now. And we can't just stick him on the bench and say, well, you're going to rot there until January till we try to find a club to buy you. We've got to try and get the best out of him. If he continues to shit the bed, then, you know, we move him on in the future. But right now, him and Jota are the two main number 9s we have at the club. Now, actually, I've done my predicted 11 for the game, and I haven't put either of those two at centre forward in my predicted 11 for the game against AC Milan. I've gone for something a little bit different, which I don't want to spoil, but hopefully you get a chance to have a look at that tomorrow. Dave said Craig poll on Kiesa to play tomorrow or Saturday. So the poll, it won't tell us anything, Dave. It's just everybody wants him to play tomorrow. I can tell you that that'll be the answer to the poll already, bro. I don't mean that to be rude or anything, but it's up to Arne Slot when he plays. You know, our best wishes, our best intentions don't really come into it, because let's be honest, most of us, including me, probably thought that he was going to be on the bench at least yesterday and maybe get a little welcome to Anfield run out. But I mean, there's definitely an argument, Dave, to say that you're over in Italy against a team in a league that he knows well. You know, maybe this is the perfect opportunity to give him a run out. I really just don't think he starts, though. You know, he just doesn't have the minutes in the legs to start yet. I definitely think you're going to have to get probably 2-3 substitute appearances out of him, ranging from 10-15 minutes, maybe right up into half an hour before you look to give him a start. Because we want the time that he starts to be when he starts performing well, right? We don't want Federico Chiesa to be introduced, not being fully match fit, not being up to speed, and then starting to get grief because of those poor performances. You know, so I like what Arne Slot's doing here. And Jurgen as well was similar. He wouldn't put players in until he felt like they were really ready to go. And more often than not with Jurgen, he got it right. You know, think back to Andy Robertson. It was quite a while before we'd seen Andy Robertson become a regular fixture or even get opportunities when he came to Liverpool. But when Jurgen did introduce him, he hit the ground running. And that's what I hope is going to be the same for Kiesa. We know what he's capable of. We know that he was a €100 million player a few years ago, and this has the potential to be a great piece of business by the club. But we also have to make sure that we get the timing of this right, because nobody wants us to start having fans turning on him if he doesn't start hitting the ground running. So it's about, I guess, Dave, getting that bit of measure between our expectation as fans and the realism of where he is with regards to his fitness. George said the manager made a mess of all the substitutions, far too many changes at once. I would agree with that. I would agree with that, mate. With regards to the personnel he brought on, I don't really have too many complaints about the players that he brought on. Certainly with the first lot of substitutions, I mean, certainly you could argue that Salah could have gone off and Diaz could have stayed on. I think most people would probably think there's some validity in that conversation. It's the second set of substitutions for me, George, that really concerned me, because it looked like just a desperate roll of the dice at that point, you know, going to 3 at the back, pushing Trent into midfield. And as you pointed out, and I agree with you on, those substitutions did not help us at all yesterday. Nessie, how are we? Said, hey Craig and AA fam, what have I missed? Just a little bit of I guess, frustration, Nessie, from everybody, which is understandable after yesterday's performance. You know, some of us are trying to be optimistic and maybe delusionally optimistic. Others are very pessimistic about what we face on Tuesday. But I like the fact that we have a chance to put it right. You know, there's nothing worse than going into the international break off the back of a loss and having 2 weeks to sit and stew on it. At least this way, yes, we lost to Forest, but we can't do anything about it other than put it right, which is what we can do on Tuesday. So let's hope on Tuesday we see a much better, much more recognisable version of this Liverpool team. Dwayne, let me just get this up. Craig, I know this may sound like an excuse, but I think after the international break, the guys seem jaded due to the travelling. I honestly feel our season will be defined by the January window. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't a fatigue from travelling. It makes sense, you know, you get dehydrated from travelling, and certainly if you're travelling from Africa or the other side of South America all the way back across to Europe, yes, that's a long trip. But what I would say is, mate, other teams have been able to grind out victories. Manchester City were able to go and get a win. Arsenal were able to go and get a win, even after having Declan Rice suspended and losing Odegaard. We weren't, and we were at home against Forest. So I get where you're coming from, and we are notoriously slow starters after an international break, but I don't feel we can use fatigue at this point of the season as an excuse. I would say a lack of options from the bench and squad depth is what cost us personally. And maybe I'm wrong here, bro, but I'm not really expecting much in January. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic on it, but I'm not expecting us to do much in that window. Again, not saying we don't need it. Just at this point, I don't have that faith in the recruitment side of things, because I don't have the faith that we either have the ability financially or the ability to attract. And that article that came out saying that Liverpool weren't able to attract their top targets at centre-back this summer, that was concerning to me, because I'd like to know why. If it is true, and it might not be, but if it is true, why were we unable to attract those top targets? Was it because of the change behind the scenes at the club? Was it because of the wage structure? Was it because of a lack of ambition in the market that maybe they've looked at, or the uncertainty over the futures of Mohamed Salah and Trent and Virgil? Maybe the players didn't know what they were walking into. So, yeah, there's a lot of variables, I think, that come into this conversation. Hope I'm wrong, but I can't see us doing anything in the January window, said Martin. I'm kind of with you on that, Martin. I mean, maybe we see one signing. Maybe if we've... Again, I don't even want to say if we have an injury, because the argument then is usually you don't bring in a player to solve... You don't bring in a 4-year player to solve a 6-week problem. I'm just concerned about the market in general. You know, how we've been in the transfer market this summer. It wasn't good enough. It just wasn't. And it is going to come back to haunt us as the season goes on. All we can do, I guess, is try to mitigate that as much as we can. And that's why I have liked Arne Slot rotating the players when we've been up in games. I think that's good squad management. George said, not being able to attract players is probably down to them players' wage demands and greedy agents. It could be part of it. As I said, I don't know the answer to it. You know, I can only read what was reported about us being unable to attract them. But that worries me moving forward as well, because if we weren't able to attract them then, are we going to be able to attract the ones that we want next summer? And another, I guess, conversation to have here is, we seem to have this trend of going for players who don't want to come. You know, Tchouaméni. Obviously this summer with Zubamendi, Caicedo, Lavia. These are worrying things for me, because I'm wondering, what is it about us and Liverpool that they're unwilling to come and play for? Because obviously we think Liverpool's the greatest club in the world. We think, you know, everybody should crawl over broken glass to come and play for Liverpool. But for some reason, we're unable to attract these guys or get the deals over the line, and that in itself is concerning. Rumours of Zubamendi in January, can't see it. I'm recording with David Lynch tomorrow at 4:00. So we are going to be talking about, of course, the contract renewal situations. When I last spoke to David before he went on holidays, I asked him, is there, would the club be open to Zubamendi in January or in the future if he changed his mind? And he certainly seemed to believe, whilst there's no indication that Zubamendi has changed his mind, that the club would certainly be open to it if he did. Now, he doesn't look like he's going to get a new contract anytime soon at Sociedad, based off reports coming out of Spain. They were beaten again this weekend. I think they have a very lowly points total from 5 games. I think they have something like 4 points, something like that. So they're not in a great spot, and I think sooner or later it will dawn on him that he needs to move on somewhere if he really wants to have ambition in his career. I just don't know if that'll be Liverpool or if that'll be January. Rafa Benitez talked about how difficult it was to attract players to Liverpool in a recent interview. So when Rafa came in, things were different at Liverpool. Right now, Liverpool have been more often than not in the Champions League, have been more often than not challenging for silverware. I mean, Rafa got us there, Rafa got us some trophies, but when he came into Liverpool, yes, it was a different situation, and we had different owners. Owners who were even worse than the owners that we have now. So, again, what Rafa said, whilst I'm not denying it, it was a different time as well. The moment the subs came on and Trent went into midfield, we died. He isn't a midfielder. We spend far too much time arguing with the ref. Trent's a brilliant right back. No more, please. George, I said the same yesterday about Trent moaning at the ref. I didn't like it. I didn't like it when he was taking the throw in on the far side and he was moaning at Michael Oliver, who was telling him to move back 5 or 10 yards. I didn't like it at the end of the game when he was up in Michael Oliver's face. The referee didn't lose us that game yesterday. Maybe you feel like the referee could have let the game flow a bit more and it was a bit stop-start. Fair enough. But it was our own performance that we need to look at yesterday. And Trent and the rest of the lads need to look closer to home for the reasons we didn't win. Are Liverpool going for players that they know will not come just for show? I mean, Red, I would lie. I'd be a liar, bro, if I said that I didn't think on maybe at least one occasion some of these stories have come out a little bit just to buy a bit of PR. For instance, the Mbappe story that came out recently about us trying to sign him in 2022. These wind me up because FSG themselves, as owners, say that they want to underpromise and overdeliver. It seems to be the exact reverse of that. That's the case. They promise or they intimate or lean into these big signings and these, generational talents. But when it comes time to actually ponying up the money and getting the deals done, there's always an excuse. Whether it's somebody had his head turned, he only wanted to go elsewhere, the wages were too much, blah, blah, blah. There's always, always, always an excuse. But yet, these are genius owners that do no wrong in some people's eyes, and, we should all be grateful. I'm not going to fall into that trap because for me, I don't buy it. I don't buy a lot of their bullshit. Ringo said, love the jingle and you should include the animation. Give us a break. I'm an Everton fan. I really admire your podcast. Ringo, thank you, bro. That's very kind of you. I was actually watching a bit of the Blue Boys Network earlier on. I like Mike. I've always liked Mike from the Blue Boys Network. So I was watching it a little bit earlier on, and it's tough, bro. It's tough for you lads at the minute. Especially with the new stadium on the horizon as well for next season. It really, I mean, there's a phrase in golf that you have the yips, right? You can't quite close something out. To be up in a few games as you lads have been this season and for it to have gone away, I mean, yeah, it must be difficult for you, man. Thank you about the jingle as well, by the way, mate. Appreciate that. And yeah, we probably will try to add it to the animation. At the moment, obviously, we're just trying to make sure that we can try and sell some of the tickets to our live show in Liverpool on November the 15th, which is why that image is up along with the song. But good suggestion for the future, bro. And welcome in. What's your score prediction against Milan? Yeah, it's a tough one. what's your name? Giga Muslim. It's a tough one because a draw would usually be okay away from home in the Champions League. But in this new version of the Champions League, every result matters. You know, if you can finish in the top 8 of that league table, then you're guaranteeing yourself missing around the playoff round, and you're straight into the last 16. So every result really is going to matter. So with that in mind, I mean, this is where my, I guess, optimism Liverpool bias comes in. I'm going to go for a narrow victory by 1 goal. I don't want to say the exact score because I want people to watch the prediction, but I'm going for a narrow 1-goal win. Rachel said, I got my tickets for the Liverpool show. Oh, that's awesome, Rachel. Can't wait to meet you. Is the partner coming with you? Or I should say the spouse coming with you? Can't wait. Going to be lovely. Thank you so much, Rachel. Looking forward to meeting you both if you're coming. Either way, I know you're coming, so looking forward to meeting you. Can you start selling the cartoons of me and Newlon on a mug? They're so cool. I don't... We looked at the mug situation, mate, and the cost of postage at the minute is just ridiculous. And I refuse to ask anybody to pay those silly prices. I posted a couple of mugs. My wife posted a couple of mugs over to the UK, some to Boston and some to Florida. And it was almost as expensive to send the mugs to the UK as it was to America. It's crazy. So at the minute, I'm holding off on any merchandise because I don't like selling stuff to people. You know, I'd like you to come to the show, of course, but other than that, merchandise is something that I keep pushing back and back and back because it takes a lot of time and effort as well to figure it all out. And you want to make sure people get good quality products and stuff. So it's probably something for the future. James is coming as well. Lovely. Can't wait to meet you both. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate you coming along. And if anybody else wants to get their tickets, as I mentioned, you can get it from the link that's pinned to the top of the chat now, or that's in the description of the stream. Tickets are priced, I think, £20 on the Hot Water Comedy website, plus I think there's a small booking fee. And can't wait to see you there. It's an all ages event, so if you want to bring your kids along or the grandparents along or whatever, everybody's welcome. Hopefully you'll see this comment. I love your jingle and you shot the animation. I already read out your comment, mate, and thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it. Somebody was kind enough to get that jingle made for us with some AI program, and I really enjoy it. It's a really cool way to start the streams. Reese said, Craig, what did you expect from us before the season started, and what do you expect after the start? Good question. So as I mentioned earlier on, I didn't really go into the season with, a minimum expectation for Slot to win a trophy or anything. But I did want to make sure that we were safely tucked into the Champions League spaces again. And you just want to see progression as the season goes on. You want to see an understanding from the players. You want to see a style of play that improves, that isn't stale, and that certainly other teams don't figure out as the season goes on. So my expectations now would be, as I get into the knockout stage of the Champions League, and finish no lower than third in the Premier League, because I truly believe we're at least the third best team in the Premier League. My in-laws are coming as well, Marion and Derek. That's awesome. I look forward to meeting the four of you, Rachel. Make sure you come up and say hello. We're going to do a meet and greet, of course, at the end of the show as well. And that's awesome. I'm looking forward to meeting them both, and of course yourself and James. So thank you so much. And thank you as well for your 13 months of membership with the channel, Rachel. It really means a lot. Do I still trust Arne Slot? 1,000,000%. Absolutely. Look, one result like that's not going to change my opinion on a manager. I'm more looking at blaming the players for yesterday, to be honest with you, because the manager will have given his instruction and the players just didn't do it, So, yeah, every faith in the manager. That's why I was so strong this summer in saying that I don't want Arne Slot to be a sacrificial lamb, because I like the guy. I like the way he's carried himself. But we just need to make sure that we don't have a repeat of that really, really blunt performance yesterday. Have you tried Teesprings for the merch? Yes, I have. I've looked at them. Usually the markup for them is way too high. And for me, I don't want to sell cheap crap. I want to, and not that I'm accusing Teespring of that, by the way. I'm just saying I want to have full control over the quality of the stuff that we're selling, and drop shipping it is, which is what you do with Teespring. It's kind of a lazy way to do it, and the profit margins are minuscule as well, and usually the starting prices are quite high on those things. So, yeah, I just don't like. I don't know. I'm not mad on selling merch, mate. I don't know why it is. I just don't like the idea of trying to sell stuff to people all the time. Ryan said, I think Slot got the subs wrong. So, as an example, mate, and I'm not saying you're right or wrong, or I'm right or wrong, what would you have done differently? Because if we look back, let's have a look. I think I still have the bench here from yesterday. I do. On the bench yesterday, Arne Slot had Gomez, Endo, Darwin, Jones, Gakpo, Costas, Kelleher, Kwanzaa, and Bradley. So who didn't he bring on? Or what would you have done differently? Because I think he emptied the bench, doing as much as he could in that regard. There was nobody there on the bench who made any difference when they came on. You know, Gakpo got his opportunity, didn't do anything. Darwin got his opportunity, didn't do anything. You could argue that maybe Mohamed Salah could have been taken off and Lucho could have stayed on. But other than that, he used the bench and it made no difference. Endo. Again, he doesn't trust Endo. I can only continue to tell you what I know to be a fact. He just doesn't. He was willing to sell Endo this summer. So I guess that's a decision that Arne Slot will live and die by himself, because if he continues not to utilise or trust Endo, then that's a squad plays gone for no reason. So yeah, then if that's the case, then we start talking about the manager and questioning that. But for now, you know, he's got the players I think he feels he can trust up to this point, and rightly or wrongly, he doesn't feel like Wataru Endo at the minute is one of them. Should have put on Joe Gomez. I would have started Joe Gomez, Ryan. I said as much in my preview going into the game. I thought it was a perfect opportunity to give Joe a start. Obviously, Robbo played minutes in the international break. I felt like at home to Forest yesterday probably would have been a decent game to have Gomez in there, and Gomez's recovery pace I think would have been a bit better than Robertson's as well to help us on the counter-attack when Forest were looking to do that. So no disagreement there, mate. I would have started Gomez. Bradley was shrugged off easily for the goal. 100% right, Nessie. 100%. You know I'm a big fan of Conor Bradley. But yes, there was definitely a lot more he could have done yesterday to prevent that. Look, we gave the ball away and they started the counter-attack. But once they got possession and that counter-attack began, there was a lot we could have done better. And Conor Bradley certainly will know he should have dealt with that situation better. At the very least, you bring the man down, right? You foul him, you don't let him get through. You don't let him get the shot away. You tackle him, you block it, you do something. So for him to, one, not stop it, and then not even get a block in while Hudson-Odoi... And it was a good goal, don't get me wrong. He took it very well. But yes, I think Conor Bradley certainly could have done better. Stevie Boy, thank you, mate, for your super chat. Said, as Liverpool fans, if we're expecting Jones and Nunez to make a difference, it's going to be a long season. I mean, maybe I'm deluded, but I do still have hope for Darwin. Because at least with Darwin, you can see what he's capable of. With Curtis Jones, other than one little bright spot over, I don't know how long he's been a first team player, but 4 or 5 years now, I don't remember a consistent period where I've ever felt like he was going to be good enough at Liverpool Football Club. So for me, mate, yes, he's certainly... Curtis Jones would be in the list of players I'd sell. I'd sell him tomorrow. I'd sell Costas tomorrow. I would have sold Tyler Morton. And there's probably a few more in the squad as well that I feel like we can 100% strengthen and improve on. Parallel Ravens, how are you, mate? Said Craig, hope the boys hit back after the defeat and we get some good results. Me and my dad are going to Anfield for the Bournemouth game. Hope we get a good result. I hope you do as well, mate. I think we will. Usually when we play Bournemouth, they come and play. They're not a team that usually sits back, looks to defend and play on the counter. They're an open, expansive team under both Howe and Iriola. So yeah, I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be an end-to-end type game, and I hope that we get the result. I feel we will, being honest with you. I think you've picked a good game to go to. And I want us to bounce back, but I hope you and your dad have a good trip over as well to the game. Craig, for me, Endo's unbelievable as a DM, and if Slot isn't convinced about him, then we have a problem, because I'm convinced with... because to be convinced with Jones over Endo, then that's worrying me. So... I don't think Slot looks at Jones as the solution in the number 6 position. But I think it's important that we talk about the type of number 6 or the type of defensive midfielder that Arne Slot wants in his system. It's different to what Jurgen wanted. So Jurgen did want that destroyer who went in, broke up play and gave it to one of the other two midfielders. And the big difference for Wataru Endo when he came from Stuttgart in the Bundesliga was that he had to start playing maybe 10 or 15 yards further up the pitch in where he was looking to win the ball back than he was used to in Germany. But the difference in the way Slot wants us to play, if I'm being really honest about it, I don't think it suits Wataru Endo. So I actually agree with Arne Slot in not wanting or trusting an Endo to play in the way he wants him to play, which is why he should have been sold in the summer. Again, under a different manager and a different system, you can make a very good argument for Wataru Endo. I just don't think he suits the way Slot wants to play. That's not a reflection on Wataru, it's just more the type of player he is. Darwin for Uruguay is a world beater. Our coaches need to sort it out. Yeah, but so does he. Like, let me ask you this, George. Do you really think that the coaches at Liverpool aren't doing everything that they can to show Darwin what they want? Where they want him to run, how they want him to play the position, what they want his teammates to do for him, what they want him to do for them. They can only do so much. You know, as the old saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And he needs to start taking that responsibility himself. It's not everybody else. Like, I don't want this to become the Marcus Rashford scenario of it's everybody else's fault. Darwin needs to take personal responsibility. And that whole stuff about Rashford, by the way, in his camp putting out that he's been bullied, that can fuck right off as well. Marcus Rashford deserves any criticisms of his performances that come his way, because he has been absolutely horrendous since he signed that big money extension at Manchester United. And Marcus Rashford has to take that on the chin. He got praised rightly for all the great stuff he's done. As a person, I'm sure he's a lovely guy. But he needs to grow up and understand that if you are not putting in performances on the pitch, you're going to get criticised. And that isn't bullying. That's people giving honest opinion. I feel like whoever's representing that young man needs to give their head a wobble, because I don't feel like they're doing him any favours. So yeah, I would say similar for Darwin here is, it's not the coach's fault all the time as well. Darwin needs to just knuckle down and prove his worth. It's on him. Losing faith in Darwin, he is what he is. It's not what Klopp and Slot want. An up and down chaotic enigma. It's what we have though at the minute, mate. You know, we have to all we can do at the minute, and I know, I'm sorry I'm not sounding like, I don't mean to be arguing back to you guys, but this is why I had all these aggressive streams in the summer about the transfer window. Because I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but the time to have these conversations and the time to be this annoyed was in the summer. That's why I was so upfront about asking people to be on social media and let their feelings be known about the window not being good enough. Because we can't do anything about it now. We could have done something about it in the summer. The club chose not to, and now we have to suffer the consequences of that. So all we can do right now is to try and figure out how best to utilise the players that Arne Slot does have. And then, of course, when the next window comes around, hopefully people remember this feeling of terror Remember even game number 1, actually. Let's go all the way back to the very first game of the season, away against Ipswich, at half-time. We heard that there was a change being made, that Kwanzaa was coming off and Kanade was coming on. We all thought, uh-oh, is this an injury? And straight away, week 1, that fear came in. Because if he was out injured, it was Kanade, Van Dijk and Gomez, who hasn't really played at centre-back in a while. And that was our options. This is why I say what I say. And people have digs at me every summer. They call me an idiot. They say I'm ungrateful. They say I'm toxic. I'm not. I'm just around football long enough that I know what I'm looking at. And I knew that this squad wasn't filled out enough to go into the season, because we weren't last year and we haven't got much further on improving it. So why would it be any different this year? Yes, we can maybe mitigate the injuries, but ultimately we needed to strengthen and we didn't. Yusuf said, in my opinion, we should trust Darwin this season, see what he does. If he doesn't break through, sell him and get somebody else who is clinical. I think that's certainly where I'm at, Yusuf, with Darwin this season. It's on him to turn it round. I'm giving him the season, in my mind anyway. And at the end of the season, if he hasn't shown the right attitude, the right signs, then I think we've given him long enough. Craig, sure, we can talk about selling Nunez if he doesn't perform this season, but do you think we will buy somebody credible then? Oh God, it's a fair point, Nessie. I don't know, mate, because I don't know who they'd be looking at. As an example, like ENQUIRIES is a name that would probably be on many people's lips. He's got a €100 million release clause or something like that in his Sporting contract, and I seen a quote from Ruben Amorim the other day saying that they would expect that clause to be paid if they had to lose him. So, yeah, you're right to be concerned about what the owners would do if indeed we did lose Darwin, because I would always say that anybody who's concerned by these owners in the transfer window has a valid point. Is Kiesa injured? No, Hoarder, not injured, mate. Just not match fit yet. I would expect to be the case. But no, as far as I'm aware, he's certainly not injured anyway. Fritz, how are we, bro? Lovely to see you in. Agree that was a good sub week 1. Why not show some balls and take off Mo and Dom at half-time yesterday? Again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think you could have picked any of those forwards yesterday to come off, and you would have had a valid reason for thinking that way. All I can say is, and I don't know what Arne Slot's thought process is, maybe he thought that if one player in the front line was likely to have a moment, it was Mo. Now, it wasn't looking likely, I'll give you that. He wasn't himself yesterday. But, yeah, I assume, and again, I'm just trying to figure this out in real time with you here, I assume that he thought he'd be able to figure it out at half-time. And then when he got the lads in, like he's done against Brentford, like he's done against Ipswich, he'd be able to fill them in on what he thinks they're doing wrong, what they need to do better, and give them time in the second half to figure it out. They didn't figure it out. He tried to make the changes, and of course they didn't work out either. Muppet on another channel calling me a plastic fan just because I told him to be realistic, we aren't winning the league. I don't know where to go with that, mate. I certainly am sitting here thinking we're going to win the league either, so maybe I'm a plastic fan, I don't know. I know I want us to, but I'm not going to, sit here and say if I had 500 quid now I'd feel confident putting it on us winning the league, because I wouldn't. But I want us to. Dregadan said, to be fair, I thought it was Lucho. Again, as I said, any of those forwards yesterday could have been substituted, and I agree. I think Lucho was probably the least bad of the 3 forwards yesterday. So I'm in agreement with a lot of you with regard to who probably should have been taken off. I'm just trying to spitball as to why maybe Slot made the decisions he made. But I do agree with you. I would have kept Lucho on as well. Colin said, Jota is playing too much, will be injured again if not rotated. Well, I haven't included Diogo Jota or Darwin in my starting 11 for the game against AC Milan. The video will be out, I think it's coming out about 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, so I don't want to ruin the video for myself, but yeah, I haven't included either of them through the centre in my starting 11. Players were all tired from international duty. Again, I'm sorry if this sounds harsh, that excuse doesn't wash with me. So were everybody else's players, but they still were able to come in and find a way to get a win. We were at home against Forest, and fatigue, it doesn't wash for me as an excuse, because everybody else has the same problem, and they're right. Arsenal were able to go and win away from home. United were able to go and win. City were able to go and win. So they had the same situation we did with players on internationals, but they found a way to do it now, and we didn't. So, we can't be looking for a get out of jail free card. We have to own this situation and take the responsibility. If Slot won the league, would you still be wanting Xabi? So, when have I said I want Xabi now? I wanted him when Klopp wasn't staying. Absolutely. Xabi Alonso was 100% my first choice. No, I'm not trying to say that wasn't the case, but I want Arne Slot. If Xabi Alonso is available in the summer, I've no interest. I want Arne Slot to be the Liverpool manager. He's the guy that the club picked. He's the guy that I want to be successful. He's the guy that I want to get behind. So yeah, whatever happens with Alonso, and I'm not saying he will or won't ever become the Liverpool manager down the line. I don't know. But I'm not thinking about another manager right now at all. It's Arne Slot. He's the guy. Szoboszlai looks already washed. The guy put no effort in defence or attack. I think the underlying numbers for the distance he covered would probably negate the no effort part. Wasn't good enough. I'm with you on that one, but I certainly didn't look at Dominik Szoboszlai and thought he would put in no effort. I just thought that we didn't lack the composure or the guile to create enough yesterday. I feel we were very unlucky from a defensive standpoint that that's the first goal they conceded and yet we lose the game. Because most other times you'd say if we concede one at home, you'd at least back our forward line to get one or two. So yeah, yesterday just felt it felt like a perfect storm of everything going wrong. Maybe some fatigue, maybe some arrogance in there, maybe some tactical naivety from the manager or in his team selection, but all of it together, Forest dug in and got their win, and we just need to figure it out. Slot does the simple mistake that no other manager could have made. Like everyone in the world will know, Salah will not play well after international break, and is he still starting? So let me say this to you, mate. What if, just for argument's sake, he played Gakpo yesterday, and Salah didn't play. So we moved Diaz to the right, put Gakpo on the left, and Jota through the middle, and we still played the way we did, and put in the performance the way we did. Who are we going to blame then? Because I'm certainly not sitting here saying Mohamed Salah is the reason we lost that game yesterday. I think 9 of those 11 players yesterday should be ashamed of themselves. Salah's one of them, but there was no one reason we didn't win that game yesterday. It was a failure right across the team. Gravenberch and Alisson, maybe the only two I feel can come out of that game with any respect for their performances. The rest of them were way off. Adam, Christmas, how are you, mate? Said, just a thought, does Mo have some sort of minutes clause in his contract, which is why whoever the manager is, he stays on more often than not? I'm certainly not aware of it, and I'd be very surprised if the club would agree to anything like that, to be fair. I think it's just a case of his stature as a footballer. You don't see Messi or Ronaldo coming off too often, and Mohamed Salah had an off day yesterday. He did. He knows that. We know that. It's okay to acknowledge and speak about that. But he did start the season very well, and he came back looking magnificent after the summer. So I'm willing to just put yesterday for Mo down to a bad day at the office, and and back him to put it right and, come back and show his resilience and the player we know he is against AC Milan. Liverpool should have kept Bajcetic. That's my opinion. Well, respectfully, I think your opinion's incorrect. And I'm going to try and explain why rather than just shoot you down. We could not guarantee Stefan Bajcetic 40 games this season, which is what he needs. He needs to get into a rhythm. He's missed 15 months of football. Getting 15 minutes here, 30 minutes there, one start in 4 for Liverpool is not going to get him to where he needs to be. It was probably a difficult decision for the club, but I think it's the right one. Could we have used them? Absolutely. Selfishly, yes, of course we could have used them. But it's best served for a longer term future for him to go and get minutes this season. He really does need to get minutes into those legs and experience. So I think the club made the right decision on this one, I have to say. That's just my opinion on it anyway. Right, 11 subscribers to go till we get to 275k. If you haven't subscribed and you're watching, every single one at this point really does count. So please do hit that subscribe button if you're with us for the first time or if you haven't subscribed. Andre said, this loss shows more a lack of depth than a problem with the manager. Everybody has their day off. That's why we have subs. But if no depth, what can the manager do? Yeah, I think that's, again, I don't look yesterday for one scapegoat or reason as to why we didn't win. There was a lot of players who weren't playing well for whatever reason. And yes, the manager takes some responsibility. The players take some responsibility. It was just an off day on every front. It's not like we've played poorly, every game this season and scraped some wins. We've played quite well at times. And yesterday, I think what's made a lot of us so angry about it is it was so unexpected. Rachel, thank you for gifting a membership. Really kind. Maestro said, we scored 7 goals. Mo contributed in 6. When he's poor, the team lack creativity. Fair point. Yesterday with Mo, what really surprised me was his decision making and his touch was a bit off yesterday. He's been brilliant this season, as you've said, goals and assists. And maybe it is a worrying, concern that, as you've said, if Mo isn't at it and Mo isn't supplying the ammunition from goals and assists, yeah, maybe we're too reliant there and maybe you'll need to spread that load a little bit around the rest of the team. Craig, please explain to me why Bradley is in front of Gomez as a right back. Well, okay, I'm going to try my best here because one, I do like Gomez in the full-back position, so I'm not too different from you in that regard. Bradley is, I guess, the future, and whilst he's not yet fully developed in there's a lot to admire and like about him, and truth be told, he's going to be a better player than Joe Gomez in my eyes. That's my opinion on it. I can't say you're wrong, I'm right, vice versa. I can only tell you how I feel. And I feel Conor Bradley has a higher ceiling than Joe Gomez. So for me, I would do the same thing. I would be starting Conor Bradley ahead of Joe Gomez. But what I would have done yesterday is start Joe Gomez ahead of Andy Robertson on the left side of the defence. Just to freshen it up and give Robbo a breather. And give Joe some much needed minutes. I'm concerned about Jota's fitness because Arnott is overplaying him. I think that's understandable. We've not had the luxury of really having Diogo fully fit through an entire campaign. Yeah, you're right. We need to manage his load, manage his minutes, but also we need to have another option, right? So maybe Kiesa is going to be an option. Maybe Kiesa will mean we might see Mo moved centrally on occasion. I don't know. It's still to be, I guess, figured out because we haven't seen Kiesa into the squad yet. But right now, yeah, I agree. He is playing a lot of football, and historically that usually leads to a little knock or something for Diogo. I really think if Kiesa was match fit, we would have destroyed that left back. So do I. That's one thing Mo has lost over the years. He's gained a lot. He's gained some better understanding of the game. He's gained a better range of passing. But his ability to take on a player is nowhere near what it once was. It nowhere near it. And yes, I agree with you. Kiesa would have ran at the fullback more yesterday. And Diaz on the other side is probably the one winger that we have right now that does try to run at and take on people. And Salah yesterday, in the first half, there was one incident, I've mentioned it a few times. He beat the defender around the outside and then turned back into traffic, and the attack broke down. I don't know why he did it. Get to the byline and pull it back. Yeah, that's one thing I have to say. I am a little bit disappointed in Mo's lack of ability. More often than not, it results in a little bobble or a niggle these days when he tries to take a man on. But he's added lots more to his game to supplement in other areas. So, you know, as the player gets older and he evolves, I guess his style of football might change a bit. Do I expect Kiesa to get some Champions League minutes? I hope so. For a couple of reasons, right? Genuinely, we're playing against a team that he knows well, and he knows Italian football. So, yeah, why not give him some minutes? But again, it'll be up to Arne Slot to decide if Chiesa's ready to be on the bench or not. But if he does make it onto the bench, then absolutely I would like to see him get some minutes. Craig, do you ever wonder how on earth Jota sometimes looked like a deadly striker and other times like yesterday he looks like he's never played a game in his life? Yes, there's a couple of things about Diogo Jota that I don't quite understand. One, he's so good aerially for a guy that's so small in height. That baffles me. But yesterday, he should have scored. He didn't have much to work off yesterday, but he did have one chance that he got in between two centre-backs, and the strike was shocking. You're right, it's difficult sometimes to look at him and see that, like, lack of ruthlessness, whereas other times, as you've said, he comes on and he just does stuff and you're like, wow, he's a natural finisher. Yeah, again, it's about consistency though, isn't it? He said in post-game that Forest is a bottom feeder. Talk about a moron comment. Tells me he underestimated. Slot football, mediocre so far. Not much in generated. He killed his own bench. So, I think you've gone a little bit over the top on Slot there, to be honest with you, mate. We've won 3 games this season, and we've conceded 1 goal. And happens to be, yes, we conceded the goal in a game where we were blunt in attack and couldn't score. And that sucks. And yeah, he was I found him a little bit disrespectful of Forest as well, to be honest with you, in some of his comments. But I'm not writing off Slot's style of football or management after 1 game. It'd be crazy of me. Same way it'd be crazy of me to tell you he's the greatest manager in the history of world football after 3 wins in a row. You know, I want to try and give him a bigger sample size of Slot football before I make any kind of statements about his tenure at the club. What do I think is going to be the outcome of the City trial? Well, hopefully they have the book thrown at them. Because let's be honest, Johan, none of us feel they're not guilty. None of us. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn there to say that if you were to talk to the footballing world, 99% of fans outside of Manchester City's fan base probably feel like they realistically do have genuinely issues that they need to be called to account for. What we can't control is what happens in the hearing. We don't know, but we know what we feel. We know what we've seen. We know what we've seen reported. And you don't just pull 115 charges out of your backside. It is a lot of charges to label at a football club. And those charges are being based off the reporting and the information that the Premier League were given. So what I hope happens is that they're made an example of, because I don't want the Premier League to become a rich person's plaything where the most money being thrown at something gets you away with whatever you want. Nobody wants it becoming Farmers League where they win it 6, 7, 8 years in a row. It's all very well and good some people trying to say that Manchester City made a profit in this window and Manchester City in recent years have done this, that or the other. But this isn't about the last 1 or 2 years. This is about how did Manchester City get from a club that was yo-yoing through divisions to become one of, if not the most powerful football club in the world. We have to ask that genuine question. Do we believe that they did nothing to skirt around the rules or to hide stuff or anything like that, and that they got to here by merit? I would argue absolutely not. My view is no, they did not. They broke rules, they hid payments and everything that... And I say this as somebody who genuinely has spent a lot of time reading up on the Manchester City situation, from their Spiegel leaks through to the documentaries I've watched. I've tried to give myself as much familiarity with the situation as I can, and I still feel like they are absolutely taking the piss. It's not jealousy, it's to do with genuinely feeling they're taking the piss. If they didn't do anything wrong, why not cooperate? It nearly made me fall off my chair the other day, Dragadillion, when Pep Guardiola looked in a press conference and said to the reporter, as always, we will accept whatever is given. And I thought, accept what? Accept what? What have you ever accepted? You've appealed, thrown money at, and dragged out every single investigation. He has the cheek to sit there and tell the world that he wants it resolved quickly, when the Premier League and everybody else knows that Manchester City have gone out of their way to drag this out and have gone out of their way to not be cooperative. In fact, some of the charges are about them not being fully cooperative. But none of these journalists have the balls to sit there and say, Pep, you're talking out your hoop. Mate, you're saying one thing, but the actions of your football club are the very opposite. This is why I get so wound up with journalists. Grow a backbone. Like, did you go to journalistic college and school to just want to be a yes man? To not be able to actually ask the tough questions because you're scared of not getting access anymore? Everybody knows Guardiola's full of shit. But yet they're too scared to call him on it. Because it's Pep and he's the media darling. Fuck that. He's talking out his arse. Everybody knows it. They've helped with nothing. They've accepted nothing. They've appealed everything and made it as difficult as possible. And he sits there looking into the camera like the greasy fucker that he is, telling everybody that, okay, I'm Pep. Fuck you. Your legacy's going to be tarnished. Manchester City are absolutely making this as difficult as possible for the investigators. And no amount of sitting there looking all, oh, shucks, I'm Pep, is going to fool anyone. Journalists need to grow a backbone. Sky need to grow a backbone. And they need to start calling them out. Because in any other walk of life, if a politician or anybody else was sitting there lying straight down the camera, they'd be called out on it. Or they'd be fact-checked on it. But not Pep. Pep can sit there and say what he wants. Because he'll just wink at somebody or smile and they'll go, oh, it's Pep. Fuck him. Look after the sport. Call him out. Do your damn jobs. That's the way I see it. I'm fed up of it. Same with, I think Arteta gets away with too much as well, by the way. But Pep Guardiola literally says the opposite of everything that is happening. And people just go, yeah, That's my honest take on it. And I say this as somebody who's been a Barcelona fan my entire life and somebody who idolised Guardiola. But I have lost so much respect for the man with all of this. All of it. And there's not one single part of me that believes that he doesn't think that maybe, just maybe, Manchester City have been up to something. Even if it was before he got there. Look at the payments around Mancini. Look at all that scenario. And yeah, he just sits there lying through his fucking teeth to the camera. And the journalists don't have the backbone to ask him, what, Pep? Elaborate on that, please, Pep. When have you accepted everything? Like you've just said you will accept as you always do. When have you accepted anything, Pep? Did you accept it when UEFA punished you? No, you appealed it. Did you accept the Premier League's 115 charges? No, you appealed it. So when do you accept it? Because you just said, as we always do. He doesn't. Have you seen what Dave O'Cott posted about Wirtz in Liverpool? I haven't, nor do I really care what that lad has. I don't really like Dave O'Cott, to be honest with you. I've had one interaction with him and I found him very rude, so I don't really care what he says, to be honest with you. I don't mean that to be rude, but I don't. Journal's job isn't to suck up, it's to report the facts. Sports journalism's in the mud. Exactly, Johan. And do you know what gets me so much, mate, is these same people that look down their nose at fan content and view us all as toxic or idiots or not intelligent or articulate enough. It's very ironic to me that the fan channels are the ones that have the balls to call stuff out. A lot of the time, not all the time. Of course, there are going to be some outlets of fan channels that are very sympathetic to the clubs and all this stuff all the time and will never do any wrong. But many call it out because they care about the club and they care about what happens. So you're right, mate. Sports journalism, to me, in some regards, is in the mud. There are still some good journalists out there doing some good work, don't get me wrong. But I very much agree with you that that's why people have turned away from a lot of the written articles and stuff to come towards fan channels, because we're not withholding to shareholders, we're not withholding to get access to the clubs. We just say what we feel. We say what we deem to be true about the clubs that we all love. And I think people that resonates with people. You know, whether you're a fan of the United Stand, AFTV, True Geordie, The Irish Guy, me, the Blue Boys Network, Chelsea TV, whoever it is, something that they say resonates with you and you watch with them. I find these days I resonate far more with fan content creators than I do with many of the mainstream journalists, because I don't think that they're being true to their roots. I don't. Like, I look at the Echo at times and I think, who do you represent? Are you writing on behalf of the club, or are you writing on behalf of the readers that you're supposed to be there to tell about the club? Because I just see them as cheerleaders for the club and never criticising them, even when they blatantly do stuff wrong. And I don't think that's a healthy relationship. You know, I wouldn't surround myself with yes men. I wouldn't want our politicians to go unchallenged. I wouldn't want our educators to go unchallenged. Why do we accept it in sport? Why are owners and those in power in football not accountable? Why are hearings always held in private? Why does football have a fear of transparency? You know the answer. It's because it's greasy as fuck. Football is a massive pot of hypocrisy. Football clubs claim to have all of these morals until it hits their bottom line, and then morals go out the window. For instance, where's the bans for Enzo Fernandez? Doesn't happen. But if you said what he said inside the stadium, you'd be banned. And rightly so. Football clubs are fucking hypocrites. They absolutely are. Sorry, but they are. Doesn't mean we don't love them, but I get sick of being preached to. I get sick of Sky and everybody else telling me to stamp hate out of the game and remove her from the game. And if one sports person gets something said against them, it's headlines everywhere. But everybody else can be abused from one end of the day to the next, and social media companies don't give a fuck. You can come on here and troll anybody you want, shout abuse at me, Goldbridge, Robbie, whoever. That's alright though. We apparently aren't real people. We don't count. We're here to be abused. They don't hold the same standards for everyone. They hold us to a standard that they won't hold themselves to. And that annoys me. And I think it annoys a lot of other people as well. Yeah. That, again, sometimes my honesty of how I feel probably lands me in trouble at times, but genuinely that's where I'm at with football. There's a lot of greasy stuff that, you know, they profess to want to do one thing, but in reality is very different at times. Keep up the good work. Like Maximus said, are you not entertained? Thank you, mate. Look, I'm just going to keep saying what I think needs to be said and enjoying interacting with you all and having a chat and talking about the Reds, because honestly, it's a privilege of a lifetime for me to be doing this as a job. And And I believe it's on me to be as honest as I can about what I see for the football club. You know, I never thought I'd have a position where maybe my voice resonates with people or has a reach. But I view it as very important that I am honest and that I speak how I feel to represent the people that put me where I am. And I'm never going to forget that. I'm never going to become a lackey. I'm never going to stop spouting what I think to be truth, even if it's going to cause me trouble. Steve said, bad game yesterday, but I like the tactics. I've noticed attempts fell from 20.8 in 23-24 to 15.5 per game this season. Is the balance too defensive? It's a really good point you've raised, Steve. Some people might feel like we're too boring under Arne Slot. I've gotta say, I honestly don't get the boring stuff. Certainly we're more meticulous in our build-up is probably the fairer way. But what got me yesterday was, apart from the amount of shots we took, it's how little few of them were on target. So I don't remember the exact stats yesterday, but I want to say it was around 14 shots, 5 on target for us. Something along those lines. So if we need to improve that, how many wayward shots we're taking, how many shots are being blocked and stuff like that. But yeah, it's interesting, mate, and I appreciate you bringing up the attempts. It's something I'll try to keep an eye on over the next few weeks and see if I see any patterns emerging with them. Dylan said, I appreciate your honesty, Craig. That's why I prefer Anfield Agenda. Look, I'm not saying I'm always right, mate. I'm not. But I can promise you that I don't say anything for effect. I don't say anything to be divisive. I tell you how I feel. And I try to respect how other people feel. But my mother always told me my mouth was going to get me in trouble, because I was never able to bite my tongue in life. Never. Still can't do it to this day. If I feel like I'm being hard done by or somebody's being mistreated, I'm speaking up. I just am. Whether it causes me trouble or not, I guess I deal with that afterwards. But I have to. Like, people tune in here from all over the world every night. I think the very least that they deserve from me is sincerity. You know, if they don't agree with me, we can talk about that, absolutely. But I'm going to give you my honest opinion, because that's all I've ever promised. We've been very efficient in the first 3 games, but don't want to rely on taking one of the limited chances. Yeah, I mean, I've been really impressed with us, Steve, to be honest with you. Yesterday, I keep saying the same thing, but it really did come as a shock to me, because I wasn't expecting us to be as poor as we were yesterday. Particularly in attack, because that's the one area where we've been pretty good, right? You know, we've talked about needing to shore up defensively, and we've done that this season. I think if any of us were asked in the summer, would you accept conceding 1 goal from the first 4 games, I would venture to say we'd all say yes. I know I certainly would have bitten your hand off for that. So it is a weird place we're in right now, where we've conceded 1 goal, but it just happened to be in the game where we were blunt in attack, and it ended up costing us all the points. Colin said, we have a good boss in Slot. He can't be blamed for this season. If not top of the league, it was bloody FSG being tight as usual. Yes. Look, Slot will be judged on his tactics and stuff like that, but who's at the club, player-wise, yeah, it's not really on him. What's this? 1 sec. 65 yellow cards given out this weekend across the Premier League, according to TNT Sports. Mark sent this on to me. A record 65 yellow cards in one weekend's Premier League football. Cool. Thank you for that, Mark. Sorry, I was just checking through some of the other stuff was sent on. Steve said, I've been very happy with Slot so far. With the signings, no, and Matip gone. Yeah, look, it's the Matip situation, I feel, was just really unfortunate. If Joel had have had, I don't know, a muscle injury, he would have given an extension. I'm almost certain of it. But the fact that it was an ACL, taking into account his age, and he was out of contract, just very unfortunate. Ibrahim said, never hate something because it can be good in the end. This loss hurt us all, but maybe in the end it was good for us. Absolutely. If you can take a loss or any negative in life and learn from it, mitigate it happening again, absolutely, mate. There's always something to be gained from every negative. Chelsea and Bournemouth both getting fined for the yellows. Do you know what? I have to be honest and say I've seen very limited football this weekend. I watched their game, I watched the second half of the Arsenal game, and I watched the last 15-20 of the Newcastle game. But other than that, I didn't even watch match of the day, because when we lose, I don't want to watch any football really, to be honest with you, because like you all, I'm probably just a little bit pissed off at the whole football world after we don't pick up a good result. Right, my friends, I'm going to say goodnight to you all. Loads coming up tomorrow, by the way. So we've got the preview coming out tomorrow morning. We've got the podcast with myself and Jack Gill coming out tomorrow morning, only on podcast platforms as well. I'm recording with David Lynch at 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. That's going to be coming out at about 5:30 tomorrow, so keep an eye for that. And of course, I will be back here for the Late Night Agenda tomorrow as well, as we look ahead to the game against AC Milan on Tuesday. Appreciate you all, as always. Thank you so much for giving up some of your time to come and have a chat with me. Remember, if you want to come and see us in November, you can get your tickets at the top of the chat or the link in the description. Appreciate you all. 11 subscribers away. Hopefully we'll get there tomorrow from the magical 275,000. Thank you so much. Talk to you then.